Greetings, Professor and classmates. My name is Miguel Enriquez, and today I'm going to talk about curricular threats and identify the main elements of curriculum. So let's move on to the first part. EFL's curricular threats. But what are these? So they are viewed clearly as a means to learn English in a way that makes learning authentic and meaningful. So it is based on students because they need to understand, comprehend, and develop different kinds of skills. For example, reading, speaking, listening, and writing. So in this case, the focus is on language and language use rather than content knowledge, because it's not exactly but it's necessary, but it's not exactly perfect that students only memorize vocabulary, because if they cannot speak or communicate with others, it's not useful. So experts divided this topic in 5 threads. They are communication and cultural awareness. Number 2, oral communication. Number 3, reading. Number 4, writing. And number 5, language through the arts. Let's move on to the first thread. Communication and cultural awareness. It has 2 aspects, but in this case it's summarized. Intercultural awareness and identity. So teachers need to take into account that students communicate in a genuine way in the real world, because, for example, here in Ecuador, there are a lot of cultures. And right now, we, as future teachers, need to apply tolerance, respectful, and other values according to these cultures. And activities that promote intercultural awareness are carried out in this aspect. So number 2, social competence and values are so important because it builds social well-being or a good citizenship. The 3 aspects that we need to take into account here is develop social skills in classroom, reciprocity, sharing, etc. Another thing is acquire social skills and values. For example, I named before tolerance, respect, etc. Socially competent and well-developed children is important here. Let's move on to the next thread. That's oral communication. This oral communication has 2 aspects. Listening, that is an input, and speaking, that is an output. So for listening skills, there are 3 aspects essentially. Text related to their age, interest, background, and language needs. It's important here in these aspects to take into account that they need material, but according to their age and according to their interest too. Because if you provide something that they are interested, they learn easily. So comprehension strategies, listening task, focus on meaningful context are very important. For example, here it's necessary to apply not only the listening, could be sometimes a video provided for it, because videos show aspects that listening is not exactly showing. For example, images that they can describe at the same time that they heard. And it's important because they connect 2 ideas and the meaningful is showed about it. And teachers can use ICT, songs and poetry in this aspect to develop this listening. The other aspect that is necessary is the speaking, because not only we need to understand something, but we need to communicate with other people. We need to understand, and after that talk as a feedback. So spoken production, that is the first aspect of speaking. Fluency cover accuracy, because we need to focus in communication, not in perfection exactly at the beginning. After that, motivating and engaging task aimed at increasing their confidence level in the language is really important, because if you do everything step by step, the student feel confidence, and after that they can provide a communication, but in a correct way. So low inhibition and high imitation tendency. You need to provide some example, but with moves, because moves increase the probability that students learned. I remember something here that is a methodology that you can use, that is total physical response, especially for children, a really nice method that you can apply in class. And you can have here some materials, for example, songs, rhythms, tongue twisters, and chants. Let me check, because I think that there is another aspect of speaking. Yes, spoken interaction. Key skills collaborative learning is very important because some children correct other children, and it's necessary that kind of feedback between peers, because it's not exactly the teacher focus to notice the mistakes that are made in the class, but other students can help you to do it. So structure assignments grade language to meet students' pronunciation needs. Verbal and non-verbal communication are important. For example, use mimics or manners in order that they understand in a better way your message is very important. And communication strategies as classification and paraphrasing. So right now we have here the other aspect or other trait, that is reading. And we have here 4 characteristics. The first is literacy-rich environment. So here there are 2 aspects: access to a particular culture, brain culture. And competent users of writing language have access to better futures. And it is important here because when you know and understand a reading in another language, you have more material and more knowledge on the internet, or you can apply foreign studies in a foreign English-speaking country. Another aspect that you have here is reading comprehension, because we need to understand messages inside of the reading. And we have here 3 aspects important. Improve students' structure and lexical skills. It's about grammar. So they need to use an accurate grammar in this aspect, but this is step by step, day by day. So this is a hard work that we need to apply in order that students get a correct development of this language. So students identify and understand simple information text. Always you have to start with an easy example, and after that you have to add or increase the difficulty of your examples and activities. It is useful for acquisition of English. Use of resources and study skills. Educate the students to use the variety of information resources. For example, ICT resources, print resources, etc. You can use notebook or the book that is necessary to develop inside of a class. And improve and develop study skills. Finally, cross-curricular content. That is based on superimpose the content of the subject, increase motivation to learn, establish an authentic context for communication. It's important because this engage in a conversation or a topic, and after that they try to do something in English. The next aspect or trait is writing, and it's very essential that students know this aspect because it allows us to travel to other country and study in an English-speaking country. Initial literacy, this is the first aspect of this trait, and consists in an integral part of personal life. Initial L2 or second language literacy is influenced by some essential factors. For example, the nature of first language written forms. That is because we always base on our mother tongue. Here we have some aspects about it. The learner's previous experience L1 literacy, or the mother tongue. The learner's knowledge of the foreign language, in this case English, is a little different, especially in grammar. And the learner's age. This is important. You have to provide activities according to the age. And text production. Purpose, the expression of ideas. Another purpose is social practice, communication, that is a communication tool, and writing as a way of learning. Especially here, we have to take into account with bachillerato, especially, you can apply activities of writing an essay, and they need to learn first the topic, and after that, write about it. And that is a way of learning in a written form. That's essential. And prepare students for international tests. Finally, we have here the language through the arts thread. And it's amazing because it helps students to develop creative, innovating skills. And we have here 3 aspects: literacy text in context, creative writing, and creative thinking skills. Let's move on to see that. Literacy text. In context, we have here two aspects: literary texts as sources of stories and themes. And number two, L2, literary texts should be based on learners' interest and provide opportunities for language learning, essential. Other aspect that we need to focus is creative writing. For example, here, I remember one activity that a teacher, when I was a high school student, provided for me. That was to write a comic that increased our creative. So builds another level between the learner and the literary text. Emphasize student responses to literary texts and start with short text, songs, lyrics, and finally you can produce a manga, for example, or a comic. Another aspect that we need to take into account is creative thinking skills. For example, here, stimulation and motivation to integrate multiple modes of communication are important. Here we have some examples: music, art, dance, and poetry. Lifelong learning opportunities, risk, taking self-confidence awareness, and promotes all communicative outcomes, educational, intercultural, and aesthetic outcomes. And it's important, especially the last, because you know that students always need to present or need to do homework, but this homework needs to be aesthetic because it is part of the respect to receive a good homework or tasks. And finally, the reference. The reference was found and was provided for the Ministry of Education of Ecuador in 2019. That's it. Thank you for your attention.